Welcome to Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius, your source for horror, sci-fi, suspense, and all things violent.
Thank you so much for joining me today on this very special edition of Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius. Today we have episode 167. My special guest has been on the podcast before, but not in the same location, right? He moves all the way from Germany. Welcome to the show, Mareike Schröder. Thank you so much for not only being on the podcast, but taking the time out of your vacation to come visit. So that was super cool.
Thank you so much for having me. This time really here in the studio and not just over the podcast.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. I don't know, was it 1 or 2 years ago? I'm not even sure. It hasn't been that long that we did the initial one.
No, it was 1 year and maybe like 2 months ago or something.
And what's super cool about that, I was on your podcast, you were on mine, but it was that interaction that got me to even think about going to Frankfurt for the Buchmesse. And that was such an incredible experience. You guys both came down, which was really cool. That was awesome. Yeah, and then to have the opportunity for you guys to come here. So all week long, I've been looking forward to this. Usually don't have a lot of friends come over. And so this is cool. And I was also thinking, man, I have friends that live an hour away that I haven't seen in a long time. So it does mean a lot that you guys came out here. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. It's a shame that you don't have friends over so often because you have a lovely house.
Well, thank you. We spend so much time just enjoying, I think, our weekends as a family. We've really been working on that. So you guys totally ruined our weekend. Oh. No, but really, like Saturdays from Friday around 3 o'clock until Sunday afternoon, like I'm just like, okay, that's family time. I'm just gonna hang out, play Fortnite with my wife and whatever makes her happy, because she's working hard all week. So yeah, that's probably why we don't do a lot of stuff with friends. But this was fun. My kids even enjoyed hanging out with you. I was like, I know my daughter enjoyed it. So did Jake, showing you all his Pokemon cards. And something super cool that has developed was we got started talking about writing. And you guys might have mentioned, I can't remember whether or not you had mentioned your book idea to me in Germany or not. Have you had it for that long?
We've had it for that long, like ever since our last trip to the US in 2019. Okay. We, like, out of the blue, actually started to develop this idea because we used to do like a lot of driving, as you do when you do a round trip in the US. And while you drive, like there's of course like some time when you have a certain silence that falls between you and when you get it. Yeah. By the way, for everyone who does not know, when Mark is talking about it's me and my husband. So back then, me and my boyfriend, when we were in the car, there's sometimes silence where you just sit in comfortable silence, and sometimes you just start to think. And at some point we started to think about this story idea that started to develop, but like more of a world that we thought was cool and less of a real story. But when we mentioned it to Mark today, we actually started to develop some story ideas, and that was actually pretty great because he has already done so many stories other than us. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You got to work on it too, Ghost, right?
Oh yeah, Ghost has been here a lot. No, I think it's a really cool story idea. I think it's a very smart idea. I think having both of you working on it together, like that's cool. I also know, and you got to see how my family reacted, because I'm always encouraging people to write. I want to get rid of anything that might be blocking someone from tapping into that creativeness, whether it's like a doubt, like, oh, I don't know how to write a book, because that's real easy to do. Like if you haven't done it before, then it might seem overwhelming. And, it's like, where do I start? If I don't know what happens on page 1, then I can't start my book. But so I love trying to get rid of those kinds of things. So we'll talk some more, and you guys already made a lot of progress today.
That's true.
Yeah. And if it gets you started, then that's really cool. You know what? I did not mention the name of your podcast, Child of the Library, correct?
Yes.
So what do you talk about on your podcast? Who should check it out?
Everyone who is interested in like bookish stories, like everything from book recommendations. I also did that in the past, where I just randomly found someone who wanted to get back into reading, who had like lost their interest in reading, and I just asked them to send me like a few things that they're interested in, and then I picked up books for them. So this is what I do. I also like talk about what I have been reading, or also some things that I can generally recommend when you are interested in this and this, or maybe also sometimes things that are going on in the reading community that I want to comment on, or any thoughts that I have about anything that is book related.
That's awesome. Now, what got you to start the podcast? Was it difficult to start?
It was not as difficult as I would have thought. Like, the thing is, like, even in school, I knew that I really love listening to things. Like, for example, I was really good at learning through actually listening in class, which I think a lot of people maybe sometimes don't. But I always had a better time actually listening. And then I didn't have to learn as much as home from the textbooks, because this was just working for me better. And I also really loved listening to audiobooks. And through that whole, like, you don't really see something, but you can get to hear something from someone. I really like the idea of having a bookish podcast, because, like, in a book, you also don't have any visuals, unless it's like a comic book or something like that. But if you just have a written text, you don't have that. And it's the same like when someone's talking to you. You don't have the images in your head, but you can project them. But it's just like a little bit easier on your mind when someone is telling you the story rather than you actually having to read it physically. So this is what I really, really liked. And the thing is, when, like, over the past few years, when I really started to get back into reading, I of course discovered like BookTube and all of those bookish videos. But I was always like, you know, when you want to do that, you need to have like camera equipment and good lighting, and you maybe need to like dress in an appropriate way whenever you want to do a video. But I never really checked out like bookish podcasts. But then at some point I listened to a podcast about books, who was actually by someone who has been like bigger in the bookish YouTube community, but then sort of stepped back from YouTube a bit and just wanted to do the podcast. And when I realized that, you know, like, they can do it, and I saw like more and more people from all sorts of different topics pop up to who just did podcasts, I was like, okay, it can't be like that extremely difficult. So I looked a bit into it. Like, I know that at some point I just sat down with my iPad and started to design my little logo of my podcast. And this is where it sort of all came together. And once I was like a little bit set up with like a free software where I could like cut voice recordings with, I was actually good to go, basically. And encouraging everyone to start a podcast if you want to, because it's actually not too technically difficult to start up one. You just need to get it started once, and then the uploading part and sticking with it, that's the hardest part. Yeah,
sticking with it definitely is tough. Now, how about the confidence part of it? Because I think that's probably just like the confidence with starting a book, you know, the confidence of, like, I know for me, even, I didn't like my voice. I definitely had, so I had a hard time hearing my voice. I didn't think I was that smart, so I didn't think I should even put out a podcast, and who wants to hear from me? Now, did you have any of that self-doubt starting it, or were you going it just, I'm just going to do it?
No, this might be a little bit weird, but my English speaking voice is different from my German speaking voice. So like, my German speaking voice is a lot darker than my English
I like
voice.
that. I love the German.
So I think for me, the feeling of like hearing myself and not liking myself is probably not that much, because I'm doing the podcast in a different language. So yeah, I didn't really have that. Like, for my job, I need to do a lot of like presentations. So free speaking in English is like sort of like my day-to-day. So whether I do it like in front of people or in front of a microphone was not that much of a big deal for me personally. And yeah, the language thing, of course, like when you do it in like second language, even though when you're fluent in it, you might like need to make a few more like bullet points on what you want to say, or a specific word that you want to use. But yeah, in general, it was okay.
Now, why English? Just because I think we talked about this on the last time you're on the podcast of why you read in English. But if you go over that, why record in English, and why do you like to read in English?
So for me, reading in English really comes also from learning the language, because like the way how I used to learn English, of course I had it in school, you know, where you get taught all of the basics. But for me, really like getting deeper into English and also like sort of developing like a bit more of an accent and stuff really came from like watching movies in English or listening to audiobooks in English and stuff. And then also after some time also reading in English, when I discovered that there are a lot of English books out there who are not the recommended reading from school.
Oh yeah.
And that are actually pretty fun to read in English. So, and especially also like, because the German language and the English language are so very different, there of course is also a nuance when it comes to the translation. And when someone writes something in English, when you know the language, why don't you read it in the original text? So this is sort of where that all came from. And of course, there was some transitional period between me being in school and with me actually starting my work and actually also having English as a big part of my work. So during that time, I really relied on anything like video games, series, movies, books, anything that I can consume in English so that I don't lose it, because that's always the worst when you know, I had such good French, I could read like economic articles in French and then you never use it and then so hard to get back into it. So I definitely didn't want that to happen with English. So this is sort of like where the reading part of that came in. And because I was reading so much in English, and I was also watching the videos, like the YouTube videos in English, I sort of got more involved into the English speaking book community. And there's also like, there are like, when it comes to books, there are some certain terminologies like, I don't know, TBR, like to be read pile, or like deckled edges, you know, like with some books when they have those like weird, like cut edges. And of course, I know the German word for TBR, but I don't know the German word for the deckled edges, just because I don't listen to those particular videos, or I'm not even sure whether we have deckled edges in the German book market. I've never seen them. So yeah, you know, like there are those little things like those words, and when you are more within that community, you just automatically start to talk about these things in the language that you're accustomed to.
That makes sense. Now, have you found any German authors that you enjoy, that you would go and you would just buy a book that's written in German by a German author? Like, are there any that you have found?
And the thing is, I don't have, like, I have some from more of an adult point of view. Those are mainly the ones who are more like crime novels.
Right.
Those are the ones that I enjoy in German, also because sometimes they are set in Germany, in the area where I used to live, or live now, but in different places. So this is always very nice. And then I would feel weird, like reading about something in Germany, not in German, to be honest. But yeah, like I of course have authors from like my childhood, like when I did not read in English, that I have like a very big attachment to. And whenever they come out, even with adult novels, I'm like, okay, auto-buy, give me that book, I want to read it.
That's cool. All right, now something, I might have asked you this off camera, but your guys' impression of Americans versus Germans.
We found out that there are some like similarities, but there are also some things that are rather different. Like, we know that people are like nice here, but we were really like, wherever we went, they were always super nice, like very forthcoming. They were always very talkative, like they were really ready to share and were super friendly. And, you know, I think that's a good example. Like in Germany, when you go on an elevator, you just stand there awkwardly until everyone gets out. And of course, that sometimes happens in the US as well. But very often, because we have been going around for such a long time now, and we have been into so many hotels, you have all of those different interactions with different people in those hotels. And very, very often there was just some random conversation that was started. For example, when we were in a place near Spokane, we were actually quite surprised how many people stayed in that particular hotel. And that was because there was a shooting competition nearby, which we of course didn't know about. And there were two guys, you know, coming into our elevator, and we needed to go like 3 stories down. And then at some point, the guy randomly turned and was like, by the way, don't be irritated by all of those guns. We're not trying to shoot you. There's just a shooting competition nearby. And we're like, okay.
Feel better. Well, and part of that might be because you guys both seem very friendly. You seem both, very nice people. I think people can pick up on that, because generally I wouldn't think of Americans as being extra friendly. Although when it comes to the service industry, I think that's one of the big things. And I've been warned about that before going to Germany, like saying, hey, don't necessarily expect servers to be going out of their way to be friendly or nice to you. Whereas in the US, like that's how they make their money, is by being extra nice. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. I think wherever you live, you think somewhere else is going to be better and nicer. And I was like, I want to move. I want to get out of here. But now, and another thing that I was telling you was really cool. Well, cool for you and terrible for me and my family. And what a bad dad I am. But you guys talk a little bit about what you've seen on your trip and how I haven't seen any of these places.
Yeah, so we started in Las Vegas. We didn't really go to Las Vegas, but we just got our rental car there and directly drove out of the
That's
city.
a good choice.
And then we went to Bryce Canyon, did hiking there, and it was very, very lovely. Not so nice for my knee, but but definitely very lovely, very recommendable. And then we made our way up to Yellowstone, where we stayed for a couple of days. Luckily, before now, all of the weather conditions hit, so we were able to experience the park in full swing. We hope that the people are able to rebuild everything kind of soonish, and that all of the people who had to lose their home now can return and build everything up again. But yeah, we had the luck to experience everything before the flood. And we saw like bison, like baby bison. They are very fluffy, by the way. And like bears with their cubs, and sort of like these antelopes that live there, these special antelopes. And yeah, we saw a lot of wildlife, which we actually really enjoy because we really love animals. We even saw probably like a falcon type who was diving and catching a fish, and then was then taking off with the fish. And then you see those things when you watch like nature documentaries and stuff, but you never think you will ever see it. And then you're just there, like casually hiking along, and then you see it and you're like, I'm in the wild now.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then we made our way over to Seattle, and like we have had like contact with Seattle in like a few different areas, like for example through video games, or that you hear that a lot of like writers come from that city. And when you go there, you could really get a feeling why, because we actually looked it up, they have up to 300 days of rain every year.
Wow.
So when you have got like a constant drizzle, and you have sunny days, but a lot of the time it's very cloudy, so it's the optimal like autumn weather to like get cozied up with a blanket and either read or write a book. So yeah, that was very cool. And then we made actually like Seattle and that general area, even though it's raining so much, it's probably one of those areas where we could, like, if we wouldn't have like family or anything that was tying us to Germany, this would be the place where we would think we could potentially also live, where we would think that we would like it. Because actually the weather down here and in the Las Vegas area, it's like a little bit too warm for us. As you see, I'm like very like fair skin, so I get burned very easily.
Yeah, that's where my wife wants to move. That's where I would like to move. If we weren't tied to right here, we would probably already be up there. So good choice. We approve.
That's good. And I mean, you're pretty easily like in Canada, if you want to have it like really cold, you can go down very easily if you want to have it warm. So it's actually like a very nice mix.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And then you guys, from there, you guys came down the coast?
Yeah, so we went down the coast to Cannon Beach, which is also very recommendable if you want to go to a beach that is like very lovely. And I actually, like when we were driving into there, my husband was like, by the way, this is like a Windows screensaver. And it really looks like that. Like it's really lovely.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And did you have enough time in each of these locations? Like and who planned it? Did you plan it or did your husband plan it?
My husband planned it. Like,
did he do a good job?
Yeah, he's very good at planning our holidays. Like before I met him, I was always like planning my holidays and where to get around, but ever since I met him, it's very nice. Like I could outsource nearly everything.
That's
like
awesome.
we sort of like split the responsibilities. Like he's usually taking care of like the route, and I'm taking care of all of the like paperwork stuff, like applying for ESTA and everything like that.
That's smart. I don't know if this is true or not, but do Europeans go on vacation more often than Americans, you think? Is going on holiday important to you?
For us, definitely. Like to travel and to experience all sorts of like different cultures and areas and see different animals and stuff. That's very important, like for us as a couple. When it comes to like making holidays, I think yes, Germans tend to do a lot of holidays, but they don't necessarily need to be that far as the US. Like, of course, like a big trip in the US is, and also the way how we do it, like that you fly in and then that you rent a car and you yourself are driving around for so much. You really need to have someone who wants to do that and commit to that.
Yeah.
Because if like on the middle of your stay, you're like, oh, I don't want to drive anymore, that's not ideal. So yeah, this is maybe like more of the like unusual or not so much done type of holiday. But of course, like Germans are known for actually traveling within Germany. And also like in Europe, we have the fortunate situation that we have a lot of different cultures and also a lot of different languages living in a relatively small space. So thinking about what types of miles or kilometers, if you want to do it in our like measurement, to like if you converted like how much we would have done within Europe compared to what we did here in the US, it's really crazy like how far you could come within Europe and how many cultures you could have seen. But it's the same like within the US, like you see so much. You have like the deserts of Las Vegas. You have the vast plant life and animal life within Yellowstone. Then you head over and you've got all of the grain and all of those like lovely florals within Seattle, and then you go down again and suddenly you've got like mountains and and a lot of snow around Crater Lake, and then you go even further down and then you've got the sea in San Francisco and in Los Angeles, and you have the zoo in San Diego and stuff. So I think no matter where you go, whether it's within one country or in Europe, within all of those, you really get to experience a lot in terms of landscape and also in terms of culture.
That's cool. And one thing that you guys did that I thought was really cool was the videos you guys captured. Like I never think to do it, and I'm not as talented as your husband, but I thought that was super cool to capture so much of your trips. And it sounds like you guys do that all the time, right? Like whenever you do a trip. Yeah,
for the bigger vacations. Like at the very beginning when we got together 6 years ago, we did not do it. Like we took a lot of pictures, but we never like really took videos. But then for like the holiday when we got engaged, where I did not know that we were going to be engaged, he actually got a GoPro. And there, because it is leveling out if you like tilt it in whatever, because it's an action camera, right? So it's fairly easy to keep it stable. And it's pretty sturdy, so even if it falls down, you don't lose thousands of money because you accidentally cracked the lens or something. So yeah, that was pretty like a good start for us. And I remember this so well because in our first video was the video where we got engaged. And I remember him setting up the camera, and he was like, I'm taking a video. And then we can do like screenshots from there, like from a picture where we stand there smiling. And, I was standing there, like smiling at the camera. And then he's like, crushing around in his bag. And I was like, what is he doing? I don't know. I'm smiling at the camera, very professional. And yeah, then he was like being like, yeah, and I was looking at him and then he had the ring and stuff. Nice. Yeah. And it's all on camera. So we have that recorded. It was in Italy, actually on Lake Garda. And in Lake Garda, there is like a small island which has like, it's not really a castle, but more like a chalet type where you can have like guided tours through the gardens because they are very beautiful. And there's that one terrace that looks over Lake Garda and is very, very beautiful. And this is where he
wow. So he did it right.
Yeah, he put a lot of thought into that.
That's cool. No, you guys seem like an awesome couple. Yeah, I really liked him when I met him in Germany. And so, yeah, very cool that you guys could make it out here. So now we're going to talk some more about your book, because me being selfish, I was like, well, okay, this is a cool book. If I were to help you develop it into a book, then I would expect that we would do a Try Not to Die set in that book, which would be awesome. Another good opportunity. And if it never happens, it never happens. And if you guys completely change the book or decide not to do it, that's totally cool too. But I just don't want you to give up on a dream. Well, we should probably go play some Fortnite. My son's been wanting to help you guys get a victory. Maybe some Beat Saber. I'm trying to get them to play some VR. We might record it. Not sure what else. And then you guys have, what, a 2-hour drive today? That's it? Yeah. So, and then Friday traffic sucks. So we might want to hang out for a bit. But again, thank you so much for coming out here, for being on the podcast, for making the trip, for introducing me to Germany. All of that stuff And so definitely check out her podcast, Child of the Library. Where can you find that? It's on everywhere, Apple, Spotify.
Yeah.
So that's Child of the Library podcast. I think I might have a short story for you guys to go out on. It's from Morsels of Mayhem. Let's do 31 others. That is the 31st story in the 25 perfect day world. That's pretty confusing. Whole lot of numbers. But I hope you like the story. I will see you guys next week. Later.
Bye.
31 Others. October 2nd, 2045. Holy shit. What the hell happened? Everything hurts. My head's one giant, throbbing mass. My left eye won't open. And my right's blurry. I'm guessing car crash, but I don't remember driving. I don't remember anything. Last thing was kissing Paula goodbye. I wipe my eye and cry out. My left shoulder a hot flash of agony. My scream echoes. But only my right ear catches it, my left just ringing. The stickiness on my fingers is drying blood. My hand hesitates, then goes to the missing patch of hair on the side of my head. I'm afraid to check my scalp and need to know what I'm dealing with. Skin is torn, but the bleeding has stopped. It's the swelling I'm worried about. The pressure. The pain. I don't even know where the hell I am. Just that it's some kind of small cell. This bench is black steel, same as the side and back walls, each close enough to touch. Thick glass doors stand 3 feet in front of me, giving this cage the feel of a fancy elevator. But there are no buttons to open the door or call for help. I'm naked. No clothes in sight. There's a puddle of spit and blood in the corner. Around my left ankle is a black plastic tie. That foot a light purple. Another tie secures it to the U-ring bolted to the floor. The glass doors look too thick to break. And there's a black number 7 sticker near the bottom. The walls and glass doors stop an inch from the concrete ceiling a good 9 feet above. Seems like something they'd pull on us in basic training. But the army's in my past. It's gotta be a dream or some kind of joke. Then again, this hurts too much not to be real. What I can see of my left shoulder is a massive black and blue. There's a purple splotch across my swollen ribs, another on my left hip. It hurts to sit up. Ringing in my ear, not doing any better. There's something on the other side of the glass, but I need to get up to see better. Jesus Christ! At least one of my ribs is broken and my balance is shit. Without the wall to lean on, I'd go down. A row of 5 cages stands a good 15 feet away. About a yard separating each of them. Concrete walls on both ends. The one directly across from me has 13 at the bottom. A woman, curled over on the bench. Her disheveled long blonde hair hiding her face. The cage is marked 12, 11, and 10 are to my left, and 14 to my right is nestled against the wall. The walls of my cage are blank, same as the glass. No button to slide the doors open. I cover up with my hand and yell, "What the hell is going on?" My voice is muffled and hangs in the stale air. It doesn't look like anyone heard me across the way, or at least no one's acting like it. From this angle, I can't see if anyone's in 10. Next to her in 11 is a dark-skinned lady, with short black hair who's balled up on the floor of her cage. The curly brunette in 12 is on her feet, covered up with both hands. She looks like she's still in high school. I glance away, even though she seems familiar. The girl in 14 is about the same age, plus 40 pounds. She might be asleep, her head lolled back and her punky blue hair smashed against the side wall. There's a loud click and a whir as the cage vibrates. My cage and the ones across from me move as one, shifting right as 14 lowers out of sight. We're stuck on the world's slowest roller coaster, but even that little bit of movement makes me nauseous. I sit down. Rest my head against the glass, surprised by its warmth. Cage 9 just came out from the wall to our left. The angle's too sharp to see if anyone's in it. What if Paula is in there? Why are we here? The glass thuds around my foot when I kick it. Only my right ear registers the sound. I've got to breathe. Got to calm down or my head's going to burst. Or it already has and my skin's just containing it. The lady across from me pulls her hair to the side. Both eyes black and blue, her nose crooked. She sees me looking, and her hair once again hides her face. 12 is sitting down, 11 still on the floor, and 10 standing, facing the place we'd come from. Not much of her is exposed, but I'm relieved by her red hair. It's not Paula. What the fuck? I should be at work, or home. Not here. Work. The protest. Breathe. It's my left side that's damaged, that eye probably permanently gone. An explosion. Grenade! That's what Yvonne had yelled. We were front row with my camera, Yvonne preparing her questions beside me. Judge Monterosa stood behind the podium, her voice shaking with rage as she recited the list of congressmen who each had at least one live-in employed. Every one of the girls the minimum age of 15. My memory is interrupted by a whisper. Someone talking. The wall is warm on my palm, my head throbbing more when I'm standing. Hello? They... here. A tiny voice says from above. It doesn't sound like it's coming from a speaker, and there's just the concrete wall to our right. I get as close as I can to the other wall. Turn so my good ear is facing it. Anyone there? Yeah. A man says. You hear me? Barely. I step on my bench with my right foot, rise up as far as the zip tie will allow. Where are we? I don't know. They took off my hood before I... Click. The entire cage vibrates. No! The ceiling pulls away from my hand, my equilibrium off as we descend to the next floor. 13 and I stop at the same time, but the blonde doesn't even raise her head. Not that there's anything different to see down here. 4 cages and a concrete wall to the left, another wall to my right. The punk rocker in 14 is crying, banging her fist on the bench. In 15, a lady with long silver hair appears to be the oldest here. She pulls her hair back into a bun and wipes the sweat from her brow, dabs the small wounds peppering her face. Holy crap. Judge Monterosa. Why would someone kidnap us? This makes no sense. The teenager in 16 has a runner's physique, bruises across her back. Her right foot is on the bench, her left straining against the zip tie. She calls out to cage 1, but it isn't visible from this angle. Down here, there's a 6-inch gap between the cage and the ceiling. Not enough room to squeeze through, even if I got the tie off. It seems like the larger opening would make it cooler, but if anything, it's warmer down here. The air stifling. I face the left wall and yell, "Hey, you hear me?" "Yes, I'm here," a man says, his voice shaky. "Not our kids." I don't get what he's saying. Then I remember the name of the movement. "Cameraman," I tell him. "Can't believe this. What happened?" Click. The cage shakes. We all shift one space. Cage 1 passing through the tight opening in the wall, 12 descending into the open space to the right. The image of an airport luggage terminal fills my mind. What the hell is going on? My throat is raw, but I still scream. We didn't do anything! Calm down. The older sounding man in 6 says. It won't help. I move closer to the wall. Who did this? Probably backers of the bill. Everyone's being named. I sit down as a wave of nausea overtakes me and bile rises in my throat. The curly brunette in 12 is looking right at me, mascara snaking down her cheeks. She holds up her hand and waves. I return the wave. Her small smile brings everything back. She'd been at the protest, standing behind Monte Rosa with the other girls who stepped forward to tell their story. All the things they were forced to do to get assistance for their families. But now she's doing sign language, and I've got no idea what she's saying. "Oh man," 8 says. "Stop it!" At first, I think he's yelling at me, but I'm not doing anything. We can only see the women. 16 is hysterical. Her screams silent as she pounds on the wall. She's jerking her leg hard as she can, the zip tie embedded so deep, the blood flowing freely. Finally, 16 gives up the struggle and faces the doors with a look of determination. Still standing halfway on the bench, she puts her hands behind her back and dives headfirst, tucking her chin so her body doubles over. Her neck snapped in half. The click scares the shit out of me and the cage rumbles. 16's dead and disappearing through the wall. Judge Monte Rosa sits there, her face fierce, oblivious to what happened a few arm lengths away from her. 14 is banging on the glass with both fists, but I only catch faint thuds. The blonde in 13 still has her head bowed, 12 attempting sign language with someone to my right. 11 is the new arrival. She's sitting up, arms covering her chest. That's Zara, my editor. She wasn't even at the protest. I wave, try to get Zara's attention, but she's staring at her feet. At least she doesn't look injured. "This is bad," 8 says. "I'm fucking freaking out." "It'll be all right," I say, the biggest lie of my life. "That girl killed herself." I saw. He says something else, but I tune him out. Same with 6, whose shouts are muffled. All I can think about is Paula. Is she safe at home? If I'm going to see her again. I close my eye and breathe. The humid air filling my throat. The pounding in my head isn't as bad, or I'm just used to it. But there's no question, the swelling's getting worse. Click. Sweat stings my eye, my entire body glistening. I'm in the batter's box and in need of serious medical attention. I count to 30 before 6 starts shouting. "What's going on?" he asks. "Where are we headed?" "Pretty sure we're in a loop." "To where?" I don't have any answer, so I go to the left wall. "You hear anything?" There's silence. Talking and yelling, that's it," 8 says. "I'll be right back." 6 keeps shouting for me, but I close my eye, pretend I'm in a sauna, keeping my breaths long and soft. Getting upset won't help. I've got to stay strong. A click and a shake, and I'm the one up against the wall, me and 13 who's still hiding behind her hair. 8 is talking, but too low to make out. He's getting louder, telling someone to fuck off. At least there's someone to talk to. I can explain there's been a mistake. I'm a journalist. But so is Zara. There's no reason she should be here. She's still staring at the cage floor. 12's crying, rocking back and forth. 13 parted her hair down the middle and is staring right at me, her hands folded in prayer. "Join me," she mouths. "Please." This is my first time since I was a kid. I bring my hands together. Give a slight bow. Her smile looks painful. Her teeth stained red. "Thank you." 6 is shouting something, but I'm not going to respond. All my focus on this woman. Click! The cage shifts left, and I'm looking into a tiny white cubicle. A giant black screen hangs inches from the glass doors, and the sulphurous air is thick enough to taste. We clank to a stop, and the screen pops on. A balding white guy in a black controller's uniform sits behind a desk. The guy looks like he got teased a bunch as a kid and probably still does outside of work. I keep my voice calm and say, "This is a big mistake. I'm a journalist. I'm a cameraman." He doesn't even bother looking up.
"We're well aware of that, Mr. Norris,"
he says, his squeaky voice coming through the ceiling speaker. 8 is screaming at me, "Don't confess! Don't give in!" White noise is cranked up to drown him out as condensation gathers on the glass. The controller says,
"Pay attention, Mr. Norris."
"I served in the army."
"Which makes your treachery even worse. You pledged undying allegiance to the president and his controllers."
"I didn't do anything. This isn't constitutional."
"Do you confess and denounce your crimes?"
8 screams so loud it cuts through the white noise. "Confess," he says. "Confess!"
"Please look at the screen, Mr. Norris."
The screen goes black before an email appears. It's from Paula. He highlights her third sentence down. "Someone needs to stop these scumbags." That's a private message to my wife. The screen switches to a conversation I had with Zara this morning. She suggested how I frame my photos. "Focus on the girls. We need to see these pedophiles burn."
"Denounce your heretical ideology.
The controller says.
Accept your 3-month detention. Be baptized. And become whole."
The smell is awful as the heat turns up, the steam intensifying. I ask, "Or?" The maniacal shouts of a madman slice through the silence.
"Time's up,"
The controller says, calmly.
"If you're going to confess, please look at the camera above the cell."
"Fine," I say. "I confess! I accept my punishment!" Click. The cage shakes and the screen goes black. This room is bigger. The humidity overwhelming. An enormous, shiny steel vat with water trickling down the side fills the space between me and 13. Another one between 14 and 8 shines bright through the rising steam. 14's bunched up on the floor, drenched and dead. Her blue hair floating on an inch of water. Her baptism. "No!" 8 screams. "Lord Jesus, no!" There are silver slides jutting out from the wall, each angled down at a cage. 13 is still seated in prayer, her face serene, eyes closed. I can't tell if she confessed. 8 keeps screaming. "This can't be happening. No goodbyes to our families. Ugh, we didn't do anything!" I punch the glass, not caring when I shatter my knuckles. Something clicks above, and a torrent of cold water knocks me into the doors. It's not stopping, and already up to my knees. 13 opens her eyes and jerks back. Looks like she's been shot. She's pointing and screaming at me and 8. The water's past my thighs. But the lava is slower. A waterfall of fire pouring over 14, eating away all traces of her. I jerk my leg, but the zip tie's not breaking. The water's to my chest. Even if I could hold my breath long enough, there's no getting away. All of the screams are gone. Just the rushing water. 13's trying to kick her leg free, her nails drawing blood as she tries to tear the tie off. Getting on the bench won't do me any good. I want to leave my mouth open, but instinct takes over and I gasp the biggest breath. The water is nearly to my eyes when 13 faces me. I fold my hands in front of my chest. No way of knowing if she's joined me. The water distorting everything. I let in the flood and pray.
All right. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that story, and we'll stick around for next week, which is the final story from Morsels of Mayhem. That will be The Rules. Up next, check out this little trailer for a podcast I will be on probably in summertime. I will have Karina on the show and I'll be on hers, but I think we're going to do it after summer because both of us have pretty busy schedules. Anyhow, check it out, and I will see you guys next week. Later.
Karina Cantus is the host of the fun and entertaining podcast Behind the Pen. Her guests are anyone who uses a pen for work. She's had New York Times best-selling authors to debut novelist film stars to mediums and psychics, rock bands from India and famous journalists. And the best part of the show is that it's unscripted, so even Karina doesn't know anything about her guest. And as they chat and have a laugh, you soon learn who is behind the pen. Available on all good podcast platforms such as Spotify and iTunes.